Hello, my darlings, and welcome back for another week in Astroland. It's summertime here. I've spotted my first dragonflies of the season, and I'm on my fourth iced coffee so far. So all is well in my world. Recovering from the Pluto-Mars opposition yesterday, which turned me into a feisty 16-year-old and saw me dye a part of my hair bright blue. Instant buyer's regret on that one, by the way. Hope you dealt with it in a more constructive way than fucking your hair up. So perhaps rather fittingly today, we do get a little bit political. And those of you with your popcorn out already, and yeah, those of you who read the title, will know where we're going with this. So, shall we get into it? We'll probably begin by talking about the upcoming eclipse, like all the cool kids. And on the 10th of June, we will have our annular solar eclipse at 19 Gemini 47. It's from Saros cycle 147, and it started in 1624, October the 12th, the year before English Civil War, interestingly. And I think the American Pilgrims were busy building their settlements and colonies. Yeah. This cycle will end in 3049, February the 24th. So we'll see a total of 8 eclipses, all in all. And this current, or this upcoming eclipse's predecessor was back in May 31st, 2003. So think back, what were you up to then? So let's quickly recap. By the time we hit the solar eclipse, we've kicked up the dust with our lunar emotional shadow this year in Sagittarius. We've shaken it loose and literally let the sunshine in, yeah? Under Gemini, we can really access that ideal of multidimensionality. Simply an acknowledgement that we all live in our own constructs, don't we? We do all create our own reality through our perceptions and our understanding. Two people can witness the same event and come away with totally different perceptions and images. And you've seen this. I know you guys have seen it because I've seen it. And I don't think I'm going crazy. But the question is, how do we integrate that? What do we do with these like two completely different worlds that are bumping heads? How do we integrate it in terms of whose perception is correct? And indeed, if this is a needed construct, yeah? Gemini likes to communicate its understanding, generally speaking, to receive back more knowledge and keep building its understanding of the world in that flexible way. It can, however, also scatter itself to the wind in that jack of all trades, master of none sense, if it doesn't successfully integrate its knowledge and understanding. That as a soul in a finite vessel at this time, at this point, it just can't know everything. And I think the Mercury retrograde of this eclipse, along with the Scythe Sag, tell us that too. You need your framework. Pick a remit, Mercury. Or even better, don't forget yourself and the cosmos are profoundly important areas for us to look for our knowledge too. Yeah, it's not all about other people, facts and statistics. So I think this is really, it's quite a cerebral, that's a word, yeah, eclipse, and we can be presented with an opportunity to reframe how we think, how we find out our information, how we cognitively function. What's our truth? As we said, we've got Mercury retrograde conjunct the eclipse, and indeed Saturn bringing things back to us to revisit, to really help us with this. So it is a time to remove those stagnant barriers, to revisit and reveal what's previously been off the radar of many people's focus or awareness. The last retrograde cycle we had Mercury in was in his higher octave, wasn't it? In Aquarius. So he splashed around in the knowledge of the higher mind. He's embedding it a bit more now, perhaps, in this retrograde in Gemini, making it stick. So revelation galore for everybody. Back to Saturn though. In particular, he can be a real kicker with the old karmic retribution. But with Mercury and an eclipse season, well, Shall we use an example to prove our point? Anthony Fauci, poster boy of the deep state, known by many, might turn into their sacrificial lamb, eh? In true Saturnalian style, it does tend to eat its own children. Not that he's the only one. Let's not forget over here we've got the likes of Chris Whitty and the Sage Committee. In case you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, recently there was a Freedom of Information request put into NIH by ICANN for Dr. Fauci's emails. It was refused twice, then they threatened them with court, and then they started to release. I think we've had about 3,000 so far, something like that. And so far we've seen that he was alerted to the distinct possibility that the virus was manufactured in a lab, that masks are ineffective, heavy social media collusion with that man from Facebook, acknowledgement of the inaccuracy and misleading nature of tests, unelected philanthropists, old Farmer Bill at it again, leading global coordination of acceleration of these injectables, sat on Fauci's working groups. What makes my blood boil the most is a dismissal of known therapeutics, such as ivermectin, which have been proven to save lives during the global COVID wave. All of this, as well as, you know, the obvious crisis of funding of gain-of-function technology, which it would appear is the cause of the current state we will find ourselves in, along with this opportunistic acceleration of Agenda 2030. And you know, and this is just me talking now, guys, this is clearly not astrology, this is just my opinion, but you know, this is my channel, and I think you accept what I have to say as much as I accept anything you want to say to me. It shouldn't matter how you politically identify yourself, and indeed if you do, but when power, you know, enough to have a massive impact upon your freedom, your health, your way of life, on censorship, on diversion away from any health-bringing attribute, isn't coming from government, we should all be worried, all of us, no matter who you vote for. And you know, we could bang on forever in terms of governmental corruption and fuck-ups, because they're there, we know they're there. But ultimately, this is your recourse to democracy and structure. Yeah, stakeholder capitalism and Klaus's cronies are not, and they never will be. I think people need to really wake up to which agendas they're perhaps inadvertently buying into. And hopefully this will make people think again, you know, Gemini North Node, solar eclipse. Just assess, what is this information? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to my life? How do I integrate it and find a way forwards? That's what we're being asked, I think. And it's interesting to me, looking at, I don't tend to read mainstream media or watch TV very, very often. But it's really interesting when I do kind of poke my head above the parapet to see what the world's up to. Just how divided people are about these revelations. Many saying that he just followed the science. Quite frankly, the only thing I think he was following was the money. And some are calling for imprisonment, investigation. Others remain applauding the little man who led America and by influence a lot of the Western world through recent times. Though certainly, whatever you think of him, he's been a powerful, influential, and well-backed character. So, on that note, shall we take a look at his chart and see what we make of him? Yeah, you might have noticed I have a slight bias, and I do apologise. I'm trying hard not to have. Anyway, here's his chart. And by the way, this isn't a complete chart reading. You'll probably spot loads I haven't mentioned, that I haven't seen myself. But I did want to point out a couple of interesting pieces to you with his natal chart and with the current transits. We have no houses because we don't have his time of birth, but still, you know, we can take a look and then try and figure figure this fella out. Look at all that Sagittarius down the bottom for a start. We know he's going to be hit during eclipse season, don't we? So the first thing I notice is the Chiron conjunct Pluto in Leo. And we could take that as a soul who really desires to manifest as a healer, bring healing to the world. The source of beneficence, healing rays. Although with Leo, there's a risk that we can give in accordance with or Leo can give in accordance with what it thinks others should have, not necessarily what they need, which would resonate here, wouldn't it? And it can struggle with its polarity dynamic of Aquarius, giving in response to a collective need instead of giving in a narcissistic manner. Mars is about to fly over those two in the next couple of days. But on a soul level, the way I read this, it can speak to someone who has really struggled to achieve their life purpose or their creative expression. And we also have the Sun square the nodes here, which can show us that this soul has struggled to actualize its creative purpose through lifetimes. Anything squaring the nodes is something we would perhaps call a skipped step, or the bendings, I think Melanie Reinhardt calls it. And it can be a potential obstacle to you fulfilling your North Node. And so you will always find the resolution in either of the nodes. This struggling to actualize its creative purpose with the Sun square, it is echoed in that Chironic aspect in the Leo conjunct his soul, I think. The resolution in this case would be with the North Node in Libra, journeying through extremes to find moderation and balance, consideration of others, and providing what is needed on a relative basis, hearing people and hearing what they need. We also have a Mars-Uranus opposition, which quite often to me, ironically, can speak to a real need for freedom and an appreciation of why we need it. I know I hear the irony here, but it can also manifest as really risky behaviour. Yeah, literally by the seat of your trousers kind of aspect, which is perhaps more fitting. Mars in Scorpio, which as we know is the ruler of DNA, RNA, genetics and virus, opposite the transpersonal planet of trauma and the higher mind in a very set fixed sign of Taurus. It's a disruptive aspect, I think, especially as we have Saturn retrograde in Taurus sat next to it as well. Saturn retrograde, kind of karmically speaking, especially if you have it in the first house, and Uranus in the first house, really retrograde, from a prior lifetime perspective, can speak to someone whose past mission or desires on this planet got cut short really quite quickly or suddenly with Uranus. My little boy's got Saturn retrograde in the first. And so when you see this signature of Saturn retrograde, it turns that authority in on itself. It's like, I'm the authority this time because I didn't get it right last time. I have to fulfill what I'm meant to do on a soul level. I'm still not sure he's getting it right this time, to be honest with you. We also have that Saturn retrograde in Taurus, very fixed, very my view, my piece of the sky attitude. And we've also got a lot of planets in. We've got Venus down there as well, haven't we, in Sagittarius, which can provide that belligerent edge as well. You know, the do as I say, not do as I do. My opinion matters. I think that's the dynamics we see a lot with Anthony Fauci. And we've also got Uranus conjunct his Saturn retrograde. And I did giggle a little bit at this. I don't know if you know about his book, Expect the Unexpected. Lol. It feels quite tasteless making money like that out of pandemics. Saturn retrograde at work with Uranus conjunct his own Saturn retrograde. It feels like that kind of karmic payback in a very shocking or sudden way. I think this book is being pulled, isn't it, from a lot of stores. I could be wrong. but I'm pretty sure the likes of Barnes and Noble and Amazon have pulled it from the shelves at this time. Talking of transit Saturn, making a very, very potent third square aspect to his natal Saturn, and both retrograde. So a real time of reckoning here. This is playing heavily into what's happening for him at the moment, I think. Transit Saturn's making a third quarter square, both retrograde, third quarter square to his own natal Saturn. So a real time of reckoning, karmic reckoning. The third quarter square, it's quite antagonistic in its relationship to society. I think Jeff Wolfe called it the Van Gogh square. And we're kind of called to leave the past behind, leave behind the past, leave behind the consistency of the past as we move on to a new phase in our lives. And so what will he be leaving behind, I wonder? To move on to his new purpose, his new soul intent that he can see. Not quite sure he's reconciled his sun square the nodes, but certainly this phase, I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? This phase sees you experimenting with new thought forms like book deals and movies, yeah, and bobbleheads, as we become increasingly dissatisfied with our original intention for being here. And that's what's going on here now. Very interestingly, it's going to be exact 3 times. So we've already had one. It will be exact again on the 19th of August and again on the 18th of November. Fitting perfectly, I think, with the fact that we haven't seen the last of these emails. There are more to come. So I don't think this situation's going away for him at all. And I don't think it should be going away. I think there's lots of serious questions to be answered, as long as it doesn't stop with him, because, you know, he's not acting of his own accord, is he? And lastly, with his chart, what I did notice, and we don't tend to talk about this too much, but his Mercury is in a different sign to his Sun. You will either have it one sign before or after, or in the same sign. And if your Mercury is in a different sign to your Sun, what can be the case is people won't hear what you are actually saying. They can quite often misinterpret your words, which I find interesting for him. And I wondered if, when I first saw Fauci, he felt really mercurial to me, in that he was giving mixed messages quite often with his words, and almost like deliberately confusing, like, you know, that cognitive dissonance. Like, you'd listen to him speak and then think, what exactly did I just hear then? And so I find it really, really interesting where his Mercury is in relation to his Sun. His Sun, you know, very authoritarian in Capricorn. Yeah, his whole filter is about the structure of society and how society works. I wish we knew what house that was in. And his Mercury is in Sagittarius, which is kind of the opposite in a way. You know, Sagittarius wants to be roaming about doing its thing. But equally, Sagittarius is only really concerned with its own opinions. It doesn't tend to have that same need that Mercury does to communicate and take into consideration other people's points of view. So quite an interesting combination between his words and his filter there, don't you think? He also has a mercurial opposition right now. So a traditional, I'm right and that's all, folks, Sagittarius Mercury is being challenged by multiple opinions and truths in retrograde as well. So, you know, being brought back to him that he perhaps ignored a little bit first time around. Very difficult time for him right now, as his Mercury is very much being reconciled in opposition, and this will continue over the year. The mercurial opposition in Gemini will fulfill that need to take others and their points of view into consideration, which looks like it's going to happen whether he likes it or not, eh? Yeah, real polarizing character, and actually he kind of typifies the energies that we're walking through right now. And it feels as though he has been incredibly compromised, shall we say. But equally, I guess, where the collective is concerned, he is a powerful lesson to help us on our way. We'd rather not have to deal with their shady shade, but they are a lesson in discernment and trusting and deciphering what you're being told and how you feel about it. Astrologically, from a soul perspective, this is someone desperate for recognition and to actualize their purpose, make their mark in the world revolving around them, which they've been attempting for quite a long time, yet haven't quite managed it, funnily enough. Yet all the signs are there, aren't they? With the North Node, the polarity of its Pluto, listen to others, social relevancy, you'll integrate, you'll actualize your purpose, giving according to the needs of others, not this constant desire to be stroked or recognized. He could have just booked a reading a few years ago, couldn't he, to deal with it, instead of subjecting America to medical and economical tyranny. Hey ho. Our other talking point today, which I would like to see more people talk about. I would like certainly more astrological opinions on this one, is Ceres and Uranus conjunct at 12 degrees. They become exact the day before the eclipse, actually, and they will stay in close conjunction for a little while now, at least until the beginning of July. And to me, this is speaking to one of the major themes that we see with Uranus and Taurus, which will, definitely be highlighted, certainly during the next year when the nodes shift to Taurus and Scorpio. Agriculture. Ceres, our goddess of the land and bounty, in close conjunction to Father Sky, the bringer of revelation and trauma. It's worth noting, I think. Did you see those cyber attacks on the meat industry recently? We've got the farmers in India and France up in arms with governmental proposals, as well as the farmers of America in certain states reporting that they're having to give up some of their land taken on behalf of a purportedly new Green Deal. Given what Farmer Bill's up to right now with his Frankenbeef, his shitty seeds and mosquitoes, this does feel rather shady. And yet, once again, sorry guys, stakeholder capitalism-y to me. Let's distract them with some cryptocurrency while we literally grab the land. And of course the sky with the likes of Elon Musk. And this isn't just an agriculture theme either, I don't think. But repeatedly, people and their good hearts and their good intentions are being taken and manipulated by faux philanthropy and the powerful, who don't really have your best interest at heart, my loves, but will shame and coerce you into submission. As much as you may want to think they do. Don't be spoon-fed emotive party lines, yeah? Think for yourself and more importantly, bend yourself to structures and ways of being where you are heard and where you can make a difference. So this is going to be an interesting one, and we do need to balance it out though, because I'm being rather Mars in opposition to Pluto with this conversation, aren't I? And there's so much positivity with Uranus in Taurus on the agricultural theme. If we look at the likes of the gorgeous Vandana Shiva, our fourth gen farmers holding it strong, our British farmers, our French farmers with their tractors in the capital, permaculture, off-grid living. I'm really hopeful actually that we will see some real ingenuity to enable us to steward this planet as we should. I'm seeing such a shift in people wanting to have that direct relationship with the land, that freedom to cultivate in a really harmonious, beautiful way. And I think that's hitting on the personal and the collective level. We've also got Chiron at the same degree in Aries, don't we? The wounded warrior. That cheeky little semi-sextile could be the beginnings of something for sure, couldn't it? Chiron actually sits between Saturn and Uranus. He sits between the structure and the freedom, the known and the unknown. And I think he spends most of his time in Aries and Pisces, and that's that nexus point between beginnings and endings, which kind of lends to his association with ancestral trauma, epigenetics, past life trauma markers that we all carry through into each new soul cycle. So quite interesting to have him sat there while we've got Ceres and Uranus together, kind of showing us where the healing's to be had, kids. Get your shovels out, eh? And on a final note, on our eclipse snapshot is Mars. By the time we have the solar eclipse, the Pluto opposition will be waning, but Mars is heading to Anaretic here. So even though he's coming out of that standoff, he still has this real intensity to him. And as one of our nearest and dearest personal planets, the effects might well be felt by a lot of us. And the Anaretic degree, the 29 degree, when Mars is concerned, is quite interesting. And those of you who have it as a natal signature may be able to resonate with this one. It can see Mars really umming and ahhing, quite hesitant as he kind of weighs up his options. And Mars can spend so long weighing up options in this 29 degree that ultimately he can just randomly go, fuck it, and head off in a completely different direction that no one was expecting, least of all Mars himself. So that's quite a powerful energy that we're going to be leaning into shortly after the eclipse. So yeah, there we go, my lovelies. An eclipse of powerful truths and revelations, I think, very generally speaking. We'll leave it there now. As ever, wherever you are in the world, I send you all my love. If you want more regular updates, you can check out Instagram, where I post a few times a week. If you want to book a reading, you can head over to the website and we'll do a consultation. If you want to learn with me, again, head over to the website and we'll see what we can do. Have a beautiful day. Enjoy the eclipse season. Have your popcorn handy. And yeah, I send you all my love. Take care, guys.